Hi, my name is Keon Johnson, and this is the video portion of my project. Um, for my project, I decided to go with video games, specifically violent video games, and if they are unethical to make and produce and set out so other people can play. Um, and to answer that question, I tried to get a sense on what other people thought. I ended up interviewing a couple people that I knew and a couple people that I didn't know, just to get some other opinions. The questions that I asked everyone two questions, same questions. The first question being, are violent video games a form of art, and should they be subject to moral critique? Critique, excuse me. The second question being, what responsibilities do game developers have regarding the potential societal impact of video games? Now, I'll tell you, um, I'm 21 years old. I've I've been playing video games ever since I can remember. Um, Maybe since I was like 4 or 5, I played video games ranging from Fortnite and Minecraft to Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, just all different types of games, sports games, shooting games. I mean, whatever. I've played a lot of games. I played a lot of games, and I think that video games are, well, for one, it's another form of what entertainment. It's another form of entertainment. It's similar to watching TV, watching a movie. Um, you're just kind of controlling the characters, in a way. But yeah, just another form of entertainment. I think another pro of video games is it's not real. So when you do play, you can, almost escape reality, escape your life with whatever you have going on. Um, you know, Life tends to get stressful sometimes. So I guess having that outlet to just forget about your problems for a couple, minutes or a couple hours, however long you decide to play, is always, I think, beneficial for people for sure. Um, but like I said, I interviewed a couple people, but I'm only really going to be focusing on two. Those people being Prince Hamilton and Kenny Taylor. I just felt those guys gave me the most feedback and gave me good quality feedback at that. I asked some follow up questions for both of them. They gave me some pretty, what I think, juicy answers to I think about, reflect on for sure. So yeah, let's get into that. Um, I asked them the same two questions, like I said. Um, the first question being, are violent video games a form of art, and should they be subject to moral critique? And what I'll start with Prince first. What Prince had to say about that, quote unquote, he said, violent games are a form of art, and I feel like judging someone's moral ethics over a video game is like critiquing someone reading a book about a murder or watching a documentary over one. It's an art in its own form, and yes, some games can be very graphic and extreme, but there's the crowd of people such as me who can appreciate how much time it took to make the game, or just an appreciation for the game itself, like the graphics and the storyline, and just enjoying the game in itself. Just like someone can appreciate books or shows that aren't the most friendliest topics. I think what Prince is getting at here is that, yes, video games, any video game can for sure be in art. I think, he said here he appreciates the time it took to almost to perfect what the developers had in their head, and to put it on a different platform. and that being a game console, so other people can play what you envisioned in your head. And I think that's 110% a form of art for sure. Um, I know the second part of the first question and the second question itself are kind of intertwined. So um, for Prince's second answer, it kind of goes hand in hand. So I'll get to that. The second question: what responsibilities do game developers have regarding the potential societal impact of video games? Um, should they be subject to moral critique? And what he said about that is, I feel like the game developers don't hold responsibility to a certain extent, and I don't think they should let how people react to a game or decide to commit crimes dictate their responsibility for what comes putting out that game. There are plenty of warnings they place, and there are some options in games to not make it as graphic. I think they're putting the game out there to be played and enjoyed, like how any other creator would put out a book or a documentary or a film. I feel like that impact lies on the parents of the children or the behaviors and actions of the player themselves. Um, yeah, I think I would have to somewhat agree. I don't think it's the developer's fault or the producer's fault for, putting a game out there that might influence someone to go and act violently. It's a game. At the end of the day, it's not real. Um, and yeah, but I followed up with Prince with a statement. I let him know that some philosophers will argue that a book or a documentary about a murder or crime could be unethical to produce and release in public. And he had something to say about that. And he told me it's kind of the same. It's kind of similar to the argument of school shootings and whether or not we should take away all guns. And he said you cannot take away or not release something because of what one person does to a whole majority group that genuinely enjoys those things, and those things being guns or video games or whatever controversial topic there is. So I ended up giving Prince a scenario. The scenario being, let's say a developer made a non-violent video game, but he produced it with bad intentions to pit different types of people against each other. I asked, would you say that game is worse? Would that be unethical to play compared to games like Mortal Kombat or Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty? And what he had to say to that was no, because a video game is meant to be enjoyed and played. Let's say even if the developers did have bad intentions, that video games can be telling you how to perform the most heinous crimes, and it still won't affect anybody except the troubled individuals who shouldn't be playing those certain games. It would be a good 100-to-1 ratio that the video game actually causes people to commit crimes. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting to see, what other people think about this topic, because I grew up and I knew some people who couldn't play video games at all because their parents wouldn't allow them to. And I think this is one of the main reasons, thinking back on it, because as you're growing up, you can be, manipulated easier, not having not having your brain fully developed. You can definitely be influenced more easier. So I don't know if I would 100% agree with Prince here, but he does definitely make some good points. Saying that these crimes, could be, someone, just one person committing these crimes, shouldn't deter a video game a video game from being produced because one person committed a crime or one person did something bad. Um, I would agree with that for sure. I asked them another follow up question. I asked, would it be wrong to ban forms of art that influences that 1% of people, um, that are violent to maximize safety? And this is what he said. He gave a pretty long response, so I'll probably just shorten it for you. This is what he said. He said, if you start trying to maximize the safety, you're going to have to take out a good chunk of those movies or games or books, whatever it is, if you want to maximize safety, which would in turn create a lot of pushback because there are a good amount of people who won't react in the worst case scenario. Those troubled individuals have those intentions and thoughts in their mind before watching those movies or playing those games. He also said, he ended up saying towards the end, I'm skipping um, some of the interview, but he said that, before video games became like a big thing, that in the 70s and 80s, some serial killers would get their, I guess, fantasies or, influences from killing animals, taking that out on animals. So Prince's main argument with this follow up is that um, if someone is going to commit a heinous act or a crime, and they just so happen to be influenced by a video game, he's saying that it's gonna happen either way. That them getting that influence from a video game is them getting influence anywhere is inevitable. It just so happened that we might be in a different time, and they just got the influence from a game rather than wanting to explore and going out and unaliving animals. Prince thinks that they were gonna do it either way. Like I said, it was inevitable. So I think his feedback was interesting for sure. He definitely gave some good points, for sure. But I wanted to go to another interviewee. We're not at Kenny yet. I wanted to talk about Kayla. Kayla Charles, I asked. She's female, obviously. And I asked her the same two questions. Are violent video games a form of art, and should they be subject to moral critique? And what responsibilities do game developers have regarding the potential societal impact of video games? And for the first question, she answered yes. I think it's objective that video games are an art, for sure. And for the second one, she also answered yes. She told me that game developers are responsible for how their creations influence players regarding things like violence, representation, addiction, social behavior, and to take steps to mitigate negative impacts through warning systems, parental controls, and promoting positive social messages when appropriate. I think she has, if I believe, I know Kayla, she has little siblings, so I think she's almost responding as a caretaker, not wanting to have her her little siblings be influenced by video games and become violent themselves. And I just think it's interesting that some people, with different backgrounds, just think different things. It's for sure a given, right? If you're from different places, you're gonna think different things, but it's almost contradicting because she doesn't play video games. So I just don't know if if there's a little bit of bias in there or not. But I wanted to go to Kenny's interview. Like I said, I asked him the same two questions, and for the first question, he answered yes. Like I said, I think it's subjective that art is definitely a not art that video games art is definitely an art. But for the second question, he answered, as long as the game or people in the game don't tell the player to go out and cause harm, there are no responsibilities. As most, if at most, if not at all, violent games require the player to be 18 plus, and sometimes older. If a young kid is affected by a video game, it falls on the parent for allowing it to be bought and played. I 100% agree. Um, on mature rated games, you can't play unless you're 18, unless you're an adult. So if a kid does get a hold of a game that's violent, that's gory in a way, I think it does fall on the parents for sure for letting that happen. For excuse me, for letting that happen. It's I think it's a little wild, in my opinion. I had some follow up questions for Kenny. I asked him, "What about Fortnite? It's accessible to kids. It's not rated R. It's not mature. Kids can play it. Although there is no blood, should they be Should they be subject to more critique if a kid were to develop in a bad way due to Fortnite?" He answered, "That's non-gore cartoon violence. It's different playing a game where the characters look like real people, and shoot real guns in a map that looks like their hometown versus Fortnite, where everything looks like a cartoon. Kids won't be influenced to cause harm seeing Ice Spice full box 180. That's Fortnite terminology if you don't know what that is. Ice Spice full box 180, one pumping LeBron James in Fortnite because it doesn't look realistic. The map, mechanics, and characters doesn't display a sense of realism. Now, a game like Mortal Kombat, though the characters don't look real, they also don't look fake, in a sense that they look human and are doing violence, which kids will see, that could affect a kid more of a sense of horror rather than them going out and causing violence to someone else, since Mortal Kombat has gore. I 100% agree with what Kenny said here. Actually, that's a lie. I still think Fortnite. I don't think I don't think any video games, should be held responsible for influencing someone to be violent. But if they were, I don't think Fortnite would be an exception to that. I know it doesn't have blood or anything, and the people don't look necessarily real, and they're cartoonish. But they're still shooting weapons. It's still a shooting game, So I feel, weapons that are in the game that are accessible, that could be accessible to kids. It could definitely influence them to do something horrible, or so that for sure. But I think, to answer the overall question on if I think video games are morally right or ethical, it's definitely subjective in a way. But if I had to answer it, I, I say they're ethical. It's a fantasy. It's not real. It's a video game. Um, I understand, some people go through things, and some people are affected more by certain things than others. But like I said, at the end of the day, it's not real. It's on a TV that's hooked up to a game console that you are controlling. It's not real. It's You can think of it in your own fantasy in your own type of way, but like I said, it's not real. So I think any type of video games, violent video games, as long as they're not telling you to go out in the real world and commit heinous acts or, violent crimes, whatever, I think, it's free game. Yeah, that's all I have.